Have you ever stopped to think about why you live so anxiously? Why do you wake up every day with that feeling that you're not enough, that you should be different, faster, stronger? Today, I'm going to tell you a story that could completely change the way you see your own limitations. It's the story of two turtles, Peter and Luke, who teach us about envy, anxiety, acceptance, and gratitude. Envy was killing Luke slowly. It was like poison running through his veins, poisoning every thought, stealing every moment of peace, destroying any possibility of happiness. Luke was a young turtle, but it wasn't the slowness of his body that tormented him. Are you enjoying this story, aren't you? Then write in the comments the phrase, "Everything has a purpose." That way I'll know you're really connected with the message. And look, 94.8% of the people who watch these videos still aren't subscribed to the channel. If you're part of that group, take advantage and subscribe right now. It's free, and this way you'll keep receiving stories that can inspire and transform your life. Oh, and don't forget, at the end of the video, you'll find more stories like this one. It was the constant, sickly, obsessive envy that consumed his heart day and night like a fire that never goes out. Every day, from the moment he opened his eyes, envy was already there waiting for him, like a hungry monster. When he saw a rabbit running through the forest, envy burned in his chest like hot coals. Why can he run and I can't? Why did God give him speed and me slowness? The rabbit doesn't even have to try, he just leaps and runs. While I dragged this cursed body step by step, when he saw a bird flying free in the sky, singing joyfully among the clouds, the envy was so intense that Luke felt physical pain in his chest. Look at him up there, flying without limits, without barriers, touching the sky that I'll never know. And here I am, stuck on this dusty ground, carrying this heavy shell like a prison I can never remove. When he saw a majestic lion walking through the forest, all the animals making way with respect and fear, the envy reached unbearable levels. Luke would tremble with rage and frustration. Look how everyone respects him. Look how strong, powerful, feared he is. And me? I'm weak, vulnerable, insignificant. I have to hide in my shell like a coward. Envy had become Luke's constant companion. It was there when he woke up, whispering poison in his ears about everything he didn't have. It was there during the day, poisoning every moment with cruel comparisons. No matter what Luke was doing, envy transformed everything into suffering. If he was eating, he thought about how lions ate fresh meat and he only ate tasteless leaves. If he was walking, he thought about how rabbits reached places in seconds while he took hours. Envy was there at night too, stealing his sleep with tormenting thoughts. Luke would stay awake for hours and hours, his mind spinning in vicious circles. Why me? Why was I born like this? Does God hate me? One day, while walking, complaining alone as he always did, Luke found another turtle resting under a large tree. It was an older turtle, with a shell marked by time and scars. But there was something different about him. It was a kind of tranquility, a peace that radiated from him like soft light. The older turtle smiled gently. "Good morning, brother," he said with a calm voice. "What a beautiful day God has given us today, don't you think?" Luke almost laughed with contempt. Beautiful? The day was too hot, the path was too long, and he was too slow to enjoy anything. But something in that turtle's presence made him stop and sit beside him. The two began to talk, and an unlikely friendship was born. The older turtle introduced himself as Peter. They agreed to meet every day at 4 in the afternoon under that tree. And so began a routine that would last for months. Every day, Luke arrived carrying his complaints like heavy stones. And every day, Peter received him with infinite patience and words of wisdom. "I wish I were a rabbit," Luke would say, sighing. "To be able to run fast, feel the wind on my face. Why did God make me so slow?" Peter would smile gently. "The rabbit is fast, that's true, but he lives in constant terror. Any sound frightens him. He has no protection. You have a shell that protects you, Luke. That's not a curse, it's a gift from God." But Luke would roll his eyes. "Gift, this is a prison." The next day, Luke would return with another complaint. "I wish I were a bird," he would say, looking at the sky. "To fly free, see the world from above. Why was I born without wings?" Peter would respond with patience. The bird flies, it's true, but he doesn't know the earth like you know it. Doesn't feel the texture of the ground, doesn't know the smell of wet earth after rain. You have roots, brother. Connection with creation, that's sacred. But Luke would just shake his head. Connection with the ground? I want connection with the sky. Days later, it was another envy. I wish I were a lion, Luke would say. Strong, feared, respected. No one messes with a lion. But me, I'm weak, Peter would sigh. The lion is strong, but he lives in constant solitude. Needs to hunt, needs to fight for territory, never truly rests. You have peace, Luke. But Luke would interrupt with anger. Peace? I live in torment. I'd prefer the lion's solitude. Months passed like this, but Luke began to notice something that bothered him. Peter always arrived exactly at 4 in the afternoon. Not a minute before, not a minute after. How did he, being older and presumably slower, achieve this precision? This awakened more envy. Even in this, Peter is better than me. One day, Luke couldn't take it anymore. He decided he would arrive before Peter. The next morning, Luke left much earlier. He was anxious, desperate to prove something. He walked as fast as possible, forcing his body beyond healthy limits. He arrived at 3:30, completely exhausted. Finally, I arrived first. But then, exactly at 4 o'clock, Peter emerged from among the trees, walking slowly, calmly. Envy exploded inside Luke. How? How does he always manage this? They began to talk as always. But suddenly, Luke saw something that made his blood freeze. Through the trees, he saw 2 men walking, carrying bags. Hunters, turtle hunters. Terror invaded Luke. Peter, he whispered in panic, do you see those men? They're hunters. We need to get out of here now. Peter turned his head, but his face remained calm. Where? I'm not seeing anything. But I'm sensing the smell of smoke and human sweat. Luke looked at Peter, confused. What do you mean, sensing the smell? They're right there. You can see clearly. How are you not seeing? The men changed direction and walked away. Luke breathed relieved but was disturbed. Peter, he said slowly, you didn't see those men? You're not so old that you couldn't have seen them. Peter remained silent for a long moment, then sighed deeply. Luke, he said gently, I think the time has come to tell you something. You and I have met every day for almost a year, but there's something about me you never asked and I never mentioned. Luke frowned, anxious. What? Speak now! Peter turned his face directly toward Luke. I didn't see those men because I don't see anything. Never have. I don't see you. I don't see this tree. I don't see the sky. I'm blind, my young friend. Completely blind. I've been blind since I was 3 years old. Luke's world stopped. He couldn't process what he had just heard. What, how? Peter, this makes no sense. You walk so well. You always arrive on time. You never stumble. How can you be blind? Peter smiled sadly. I'm not lying, dear Luke. I really am blind. But I learned to live without eyes. I learned to see in other ways. I know the path to this tree by the texture of the ground under my feet, by the sound of the wind in the leaves, by the smell of nearby water. I don't need eyes to know where I am. My other senses became my eyes. Tears began to fill Luke's eyes. But how did this happen? Why didn't you ever tell me? Peter took a deep breath. Because you never asked. And because my blindness isn't who I am. But I think the time has come for you to know the truth. Peter began to tell his story. When I was 3 years old, I was captured by hunters. They took me to a fenced yard where they kept several turtles to sell. But I was young and determined. I tried to escape every day. So to ensure I would never escape, to break my spirit, they did something horrible. They took away my sight. They used hot irons that burned my eyes until everything became total, permanent, irreversible darkness. Peter's voice trembled. I stayed in that yard for years, Luke. Years in complete darkness. I never saw the sun again, although I could feel it. I never saw the trees again, although I could hear the wind between their leaves. I lived in a double prison, physically trapped and in the darkness of my blindness. And during those first years, I was emotionally dead. Completely dead inside. And you know what I did? Exactly what you do now, Luke. I complained constantly. I questioned God non-stop. I screamed in the darkness asking why this had happened to me. Why did God make me a turtle? Why did he allow them to take my sight? What kind of cruel God allows this? I spent years in that toxic bitterness, Luke. Years poisoned by anger, resentment, envy, even of the other prisoner turtles who at least could still see. I envied the birds I heard singing free and with vision. I envied even the ants on the ground because they could see where they were going. I couldn't accept my fate, could only hate, complain, suffer. Peter made a heavy pause. But one day, something changed. I was lying on the cold floor in the darkness that would be my eternal companion, and suddenly I felt the rising sun touching my shell. I felt the warmth warming my cold skin. And for the first time in years, instead of complaining that I couldn't see the sun, I thanked for being able to feel it. It was a conscious choice. It was difficult, but I forced my mouth to say, "Thank you, God. For this sun I can still feel." And in that moment, something inside me broke, or maybe was fixed. I began to cry, but they were no longer tears of anger. They were tears of liberation. I realized I had spent years so focused on what I had lost that I became completely blind to everything I still had. I had life. I had air to breathe. I had the warmth of the sun. I had the ability to hear birds singing. I had the smell of wet earth when it rained. I had so much, but my bitterness blinded me to all of it in a much deeper way than the physical loss of my eyes. So I started a new practice. Every day, instead of starting with complaints, I forced my mouth to give thanks. At first, it was mechanical, fake, painful. Thank you that I can still hear. Thank you that I can still smell. Thank you for my legs that still work. The words came out hard, forced, but I continued, day after day. And you know what happened? Slowly, miraculously, my heart began to change. The forced gratitude became real gratitude. The bitterness began to dissolve. Peace began to enter. I began to notice blessings I had never noticed. My hearing had become incredibly sharp. I could hear things that turtles with perfect vision didn't hear. My sense of smell developed to the point where I could identify animals just by scent. My blindness, which I thought was only loss, had given me gifts I never would have developed otherwise. And then, after years, the final miracle happened. A violent storm hit the region. Thunder, lightning, winds that knocked down trees. I heard a huge crash. A tree had fallen on part of the yard fence, opening a large hole. The owners were hiding inside the house. It was my chance. I couldn't see the opening, Luke, couldn't see where to go. But I trusted the senses God had given me. I followed the smell of the forest. I followed the sound of running water. I used everything God had given me when He took my sight. And I escaped. I walked through the storm, blind but not lost, until I found the forest. Until I found freedom. And since then, I live each day as a miracle. Because I realized something fundamental. True blindness isn't of the eyes. True blindness is of the soul that can't see the blessings it already has. You have perfect eyes, Luke, but you're more blind than me, because you don't see anything beyond your faults. Your envy has blinded you more deeply than any physical injury could blind me. Luke was sobbing now. Peter, I'm an idiot. You have every reason to complain. You were tortured, mutilated, imprisoned. You lost your sight in the cruelest way. And even so, you're the most grateful, most calm, most peaceful creature I've ever met. While I, who have perfect eyes, health, freedom, spend all my days complaining. I have everything and see nothing. You have nothing and see everything. Peter gently placed his paw on Luke's paw. You weren't blind. You were just focused on the wrong place. But now you've understood. Now you've seen. Your anxiety doesn't come from being a turtle, Luke. It comes from rejecting God's design for you. Your unhappiness doesn't come from your limitations. It comes from comparing your limitations with others' strengths. Your envy doesn't come from having less. It comes from not valuing what you have. You want to be a rabbit. The rabbit envies the bird. You want to be a bird. The bird envies the fish. It never ends, Luke. There will never be satisfaction on the path of comparison. You need to accept who God made you to be. Need to thank for what you have, but how? Luke asked desperately. How do you manage to live without anxiety? How do you always arrive on time? How are you always at peace? Peter smiled tenderly. Because I learned I don't need to see the complete path to walk it. I only need to trust the one who guides my steps. I learned I don't need to be fast. I need to be constant. I don't need to have all perfect senses. I need to use well the ones I have. My blindness forced me to depend totally on God. And when you let go of control, when you stop trying to be what you're not, when you trust Him completely, anxiety disappears. I always arrive on time because I'm not trying to arrive before or after anyone. I'm not competing. I'm simply walking at the pace God gave me, trusting that He'll take me where I need to be. That day changed Luke forever. He finally understood that he had spent his entire life having eyes, but being completely blind to his blessings. He had legs that worked, but complained they were slow. He had a shell that protected him, but complained it was heavy. He had freedom, but wasted it with envy. He had health, but poisoned it with anxiety. While Peter, who had lost so much, who had suffered unimaginable horrors, had found everything that really mattered. Deep peace, genuine gratitude, radical acceptance, total trust in God. In the months that followed, Luke changed. It wasn't instant. It wasn't easy. Envy still tried to return sometimes. But now, when envy came, Luke remembered Peter, remembered a friend who couldn't see but saw better than everyone, remembered to choose gratitude, remembered to thank for his legs, his shell, his vision, his life. And slowly, peace began to replace anxiety. Gratitude began to heal envy. Acceptance began to bring joy. And you, my friend listening to this story, are you living like Luke lived or like Peter lives? Are you having everything but seeing nothing? Is your envy slowly killing you, stealing your peace, destroying your joy? Do you spend your days comparing your life with others' lives? Do you look at your body and feel contempt? Know that your anxiety won't go away when you get the body you want, the speed you dream of, or the life you desire. Your anxiety will go away when you stop fighting against the Creator and start thanking for the unique creation you are. When you stop measuring your life by others' rulers. When you accept that God didn't make a mistake making you exactly as you are. God didn't make you this way by accident. Every detail of your design has purpose. Your limitations aren't flaws. They're part of the plan. Even your losses, your pains, your difficulties can be doors to depend more on Him. Peter lost his vision, but gained deep spiritual perception. Lost temporary freedom, but gained eternal freedom from the prison of bitterness. Choose today to see with your heart. Choose gratitude instead of complaint. Choose to accept who you are instead of envying who others are. Choose to trust that God knows what He's doing. Choose to walk at your own pace without anxiety. Choose to use well what you have and discover the peace that Peter found. Peace that transcends circumstances. Peace that comes from accepting divine design. Peace that envy can never give but gratitude always brings. Are you enjoying this story, aren't you? Then write in the comments the phrase, "Everything has a purpose." That way I'll know you're really connected with the message. And look, now 94.8% of the people who watch these videos still aren't subscribed to the channel. If you're part of that group, take advantage and subscribe right now. It's free, and this way you'll keep receiving stories that can inspire and transform your life. Oh, and don't forget, at the end of the video, you'll find more stories like this one. Because in the end, true blindness isn't of the eyes. It's the blindness of the soul that can't see the blessings it already possesses. Don't be like Luke was. Be like Peter is. See with your heart, thank with your mouth, trust with your soul, and live in peace with who God made you to be.